I sat in the mahogany chair of my study, the same chair where I had written judgments that sent corrupt senators to prison and violent criminals to death row, and watched as the FBI agents tore the books from my shelves. They weren't looking for legal precedents. They were looking for the millions of dollars my daughter, Clara, had told them I had stolen 30 years ago. Standing in the doorway, holding a glass of my best wine, was Clara herself. She wasn't crying. She wasn't looking away in shame. She was smiling with a cold, predatory satisfaction that chilled me more than any death threat I had ever received on the bench. When the lead agent pulled a rusted lockbox from behind the false panel in the wall, a panel only I and Clara knew about, she took a sip of wine and whispered, "Checkmate, Your Honor." That was the moment I realized that the little girl I had read bedtime stories to had grown up into a woman who didn't just want my inheritance. She wanted to destroy the very foundation of my name. Before we enter the courtroom of family betrayal, please subscribe to the channel. We are exposing the truth that hides behind the closed doors of the elite, and I have a difficult question for you to answer in the comments. If your child believed a lie about you so deeply that they tried to send you to prison, would you fight them with the full force of the law, or would you protect them from the truth that might destroy them? My name is Harold. I am 76 years old, a retired federal judge. For 40 years, I was the man who decided what was truth and what was fiction in the Southern District. I was known as the Hammer because I never let a criminal off on a technicality, and I never let a lawyer play games in my court. I built a reputation for absolute, unwavering integrity. My wife, Eleanor, passed away 15 years ago, leaving me to raise our daughter, Clara, alone. Clara was brilliant. She had my sharp mind and Eleanor's beauty. I gave her everything: private schools, Ivy League education, a trust fund that ensured she would never have to work a day in her life if she didn't want to. But Clara wanted to work. She became an investigative journalist. I was proud of her. I thought she was following in my footsteps, seeking the truth. I didn't realize she was investigating me. It started 6 months ago. Clara began asking strange questions about a case from 1994, the Sterling heist. It was a famous case in our city. A group of armed men had robbed a Federal Reserve shipment. 4 men died. The money, $10 million in bearer bonds, was never recovered. I was the presiding judge who sentenced the only surviving robber to life in prison. The conviction was solid. The evidence was overwhelming. Clara started dropping by the house more often. She wasn't visiting to check on my health. She was hunting. She would ask about my old friends, specifically about a man named Martin, who was the lead detective on that case. "Why are you still friends with Martin, Dad?" she would ask. "He seems so rough around the edges for a man of your stature." I told her that shared trauma bonds men together. She would just nod, taking mental notes. Then came the articles. At first they were vague. Corruption in the 90s judiciary. Then they got specific. The Sterling heist, a miscarriage of justice? She didn't name me, but she pointed fingers at the presiding authority. She claimed that the money wasn't lost. She claimed it was stolen by the people meant to protect it. I confronted her a week before the raid. I sat her down in the library. "Clara, what are you doing? You are playing with fire. You are slandering good men." She looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. They were filled with a deep, ancient hatred. "I'm not playing, Dad. I'm finishing the job. I know you took the bonds. I know you and Martin split the money, and I know you sent an innocent man to prison to cover your tracks." I was stunned. Innocent? That man was a career criminal who shot 2 guards. "That man was a patsy," she screamed. "And I have a source who was there, a source who saw you take the bag." I threw her out of the house. I thought she was having a breakdown. I didn't think she would go to the feds, but she did. She spun a tale so convincing, backed by forged documents she must have spent months creating, that she got a warrant. The raid was brutal. They tore apart the house I had lived in for 50 years. They smashed Eleanor's vase. They ripped up the floorboards. Clara watched it all. When the agent opened the lockbox from the wall, the room went silent. I knew what was in there. It wasn't bonds. It was letters. Letters from Eleanor. But when the agent turned the box over, bearer bonds spilled out. Stacks of them. Dated 1994. I gasped. That's impossible. I haven't opened that box in 10 years. Clara stepped forward. He's lying, she told the agent. He checks it every Sunday. I've seen him. She had planted them. My own daughter had planted federal evidence in my home. She had used the key I gave her for emergencies to frame me for a crime I didn't commit. I was arrested. Me. The hammer. Handcuffed in my own foyer, walked past the neighbors, shoved into the back of a black SUV. The humiliation was physical. It felt like a heart attack. I spent 3 days in holding. My lawyer, a former clerk of mine named David, managed to get me out on bail, but the damage was done. My assets were frozen. My reputation was in tatters. The headlines screamed, "Judge Harold, the thief in robes." I returned to my empty, ransacked house. I sat in the dark, trying to understand. Why? Greed? No. Clara had money. Fame? Maybe. But the hate in her eyes, it was personal. Then the phone rang. It was a burner phone I kept in the safe in the garage, the only safe the FBI hadn't found because it was buried under the floor of the tool shed. "Harold," a gruff voice said. It was Martin. "They got me, Martin," I whispered. "Clara framed me. She planted bonds." "It's happening to me too, Harold," Martin said. His voice sounded wrecked. "My son Leo. He's a cop now, remember? He just found the service revolver used in the Sterling shootings in my fishing tackle box. He's arresting me in the morning." "It's the kids," I said, my mind racing. "Clara and Leo, they're working together?" "It's worse than that," Martin said. "Leo told me something before he stormed out. He said, 'I'm doing this for my father.' I told him I am his father. He laughed. He said, 'I'm talking about my real father, the one you killed.'" The blood drained from my face. "The Sterling robber? But we didn't kill him. We sent him to prison. He died of cancer 5 years ago." "Not him," Martin said. "The other one, the driver. The one who got away, or the one everyone thought got away." I closed my eyes. The memories of 1994 came flooding back. The fire, the warehouse, the screaming, and the 2 children we found hiding in the crate. "Clara knows," I whispered. "She knows she's adopted. But she has the story wrong. She thinks we killed her father to steal the money." "Someone is feeding them lies, Harold," Martin said. "Someone who knows about the bonds but doesn't know what we actually did with them. We need to meet. We need to find out who is pulling their strings before our children send us to die in prison." "The old hunting cabin," I said. "Tonight." "I can't," Martin said. "Leo is sitting outside my house in a patrol car. He's waiting for the warrant to come through. I have to fight my way out." "Don't hurt him, Martin," I pleaded. "He's your son." "He's not my son right now," Martin said, his voice hard. "He's a weapon aimed at my head, and I'm going to disarm him." The line went dead. I sat there in the dark. Clara was not my biological daughter. Martin's son, Leo, was not his biological son. We had adopted them after the Sterling case. We had sealed the records. We had sworn to take the secret to our graves to protect them from the truth of who their parents really were. Their parents weren't martyrs. They were monsters. And we didn't steal the money. We burned it. We burned $10 million to save those 2 children from being hunted by the cartel their parents had stolen from. But someone survived that night. Someone who saw the money. Someone who wanted it back. And that someone had turned our own children into assassins. I stood up. I went to the garage. I dug up the safe. Inside was not money, but a file. The real file of the Sterling case. The one with the autopsy photos. The one with the DNA tests. I heard a car pull up outside. I looked out the window. It was Clara. And she wasn't alone. A man was with her. A man I didn't recognize, but whose limp seemed terrifyingly familiar. She was coming to finish me off. My daughter thinks she is avenging a hero, but she is serving a villain. Do you think I should show her the photos of what her biological parents really did, even if it breaks her heart? Or should I let her hate me to spare her the pain? Tell me in the comments. The gavel has not banged for the last time. I was kneeling in the mud by the riverbank. The cold steel of a service revolver pressed against the back of my head. The hand holding the gun was shaking, but not from fear, from rage. I knew that hand. I had taught it how to throw a baseball. I had taught it how to change a tire, and I had taught it how to shoot. It was my son, Leo. He was screaming the Miranda rights at me, his voice cracking, tears streaming down his face, while I stared at the fishing tackle box he had just dug up, a box containing a gun that had been missing for 30 years and a stack of cash that smelled like it had been buried since the 90s. He called me a dirty cop. He called me a murderer. But what broke my heart wasn't the gun or the accusations. It was the fact that he looked at me with the exact same eyes as the man I had put in the ground 3 decades ago. Before we see if an old detective can talk his way out of his own son's execution, hit that subscribe button. We are digging up graves today, and I have a question for you. If you discovered your father had a dark past, would you turn him in, or would you ask him for his side of the story first? Let me know in the comments. My name is Martin. I am 75 years old, a retired chief of police. For 40 years I worked the streets of this city. I have been stabbed, shot, and sued, but I never bent the badge. I raised Leo on my own after my wife Sarah left us when he was a baby. I raised him to be better than me. I wanted him to be a lawyer or a doctor, but the boy had blue blood. He joined the force. He made detective in record time. I was so proud. I didn't know that for the last year he wasn't catching bad guys. He was building a case against me. It started with the Sterling heist. Leo became obsessed with the cold case. He spent his nights in the archives. He started asking me questions over Sunday dinner. Dad, how did the shooters know the route? Dad, why wasn't the perimeter secured? Dad, where did the money go? I told him the official story. It was a chaotic shootout. The money was likely destroyed in the explosion or washed down the river. The bad guys died. Case closed. But Leo didn't buy it. He started hanging out with a journalist named Clara, Judge Harold's daughter. I warned him. I told him she was looking for a headline, not the truth. He told me he was collaborating with her. Then came the night by the river. Leo called me, said he had a lead on a cold case and needed my expertise. He sounded excited. I drove out to the old muddy bank where we used to fish when he was a kid. When I got there, he wasn't alone. He had 2 rookie officers with him, and he had a shovel. Dig, Dad, he said. What is this, Leo? I asked. Just dig. You know where it is? I didn't know what he was talking about. I refused, so he dug. He dug up an old rusted tackle box. It had my initials on it, but I hadn't seen that box in 20 years. He opened it. Inside was a snub-nose point .38 special, the same caliber used to kill the guards in the Sterling heist, and bundles of cash. Ballistics ran a match on a test fire I did with this gun I found in your attic last week, Leo said, his voice trembling. It matches the striations on the bullets pulled from the guards. You kept the murder weapon, Dad. You kept it as a trophy. Leo, I have never seen that gun in my life, I said calmly. Someone planted it. Who? He screamed. Who planted it in your attic? The attic only you have the key to? Someone who knows how to pick a lock, I said. Someone who is using you. He forced me to my knees. He read me my rights. The rookies looked terrified, arresting the former chief. They hauled me to the precinct. My precinct. The walk of shame was agonizing. Men I had trained looked away. The captain, a man named Henderson, looked at me with pure disgust. "I always knew you were too lucky, Martin," he spat. I sat in the interrogation room. Leo sat across from me. He wasn't acting like a cop. He was acting like a victim. "Why did you do it?" he asked. "Clara told me everything. You and the judge. You set up the robbery, you hired the crew, and then you killed them to keep the money." "Clara is feeding you poison," I said. "Leo, think. Look at my life. Do I live like a man with $10 million? I drive a 10-year-old truck. I live in a row house. I pinch pennies." "That's part of the cover." Leo slammed the table. "You buried it. You were waiting for the heat to die down. Or maybe you spent it on him." "Him?" "My real father," Leo whispered. I froze. "I know I'm adopted, Dad. I found the papers. You forged them, but you missed a date. Clara helped me track down the birth records. My father wasn't some unknown donor. My father was Vincent Nero, the driver of the Sterling getaway car. Vincent Nero, a psychopath, a man who would kill a child for crying too loud." "And you killed him," Leo said, tears spilling over. "You killed him in that warehouse. You executed him while he was unarmed. And then you took me. You stole me to alleviate your guilt." "I saved you!" I roared, slamming my handcuffed fists on the table. "Vincent Nero was going to use you as a human shield. He had a gun to your head, Leo. You were 2 years old. He was screaming that he would blow your brains out if we didn't let him walk." Leo went quiet. He looked shaken. "That's a lie. Clara's source. He said Vincent was surrendering. He said you shot him in cold blood." "Clara's source," I sneered. "Who is this source? Has she ever let you meet him?" "No," Leo admitted. "He's in hiding. He's afraid of you." "Leo, listen to me." I leaned in. "Vincent Nero didn't have a partner who got away. There were 4 men. 3 died. 1 went to prison. There was no source. Unless the source wasn't one of the robbers. Unless the source was the man who bankrolled them. The man who sat in the shadows. The man known only as the baker." "I need to make a phone call," I said. "No calls," Leo said. "You're being processed." "Leo, if you send me to holding, I'm dead," I said. "Half the guys in there are there because of me. I won't last the night. Is that what you want? You want to be responsible for my death too?" He hesitated. The cop in him warred with the angry sun. Finally, he stood up. "I'll put you in solitary, for your protection." He left the room. I waited. I knew the precinct. I built it. I knew that the vent in the interrogation room was loose because I never got around to approving the budget to fix it. I stood on the chair. I used a coin from my pocket to unscrew the grate. It took 10 minutes. I crawled into the ductwork. It was tight and my bad knee screamed, but I shimmied through the dust until I reached the back exit of the building. I dropped down into the alleyway. I was a fugitive, a 75-year-old fugitive. I ran to a payphone. Yes, I knew where the last working payphone in the city was. I called Harold. "They got me," I told him. "Leo thinks I killed his father. He thinks Vincent Nero was a saint." "Clara thinks the same," Harold said. "They're coming for me, Martin. Clara and a man with a limp." "A limp?" I asked. My blood ran cold. The baker had a limp. We shot him in the leg back in '88, but he walked on a technicality Harold had been forced to uphold because the warrant was bad. Harold hated that man. "Harold, get out of the house," I said. "That man is the baker. He's the one manipulating them. He wants the bonds. He thinks we still have them." "I don't have the bonds," Harold said. "I have the file, the real file. I'm going to the cabin." "I'll meet you there," I said. "But Martin, I'm bringing Leo." "You're what?" "I can't leave him, Harold. He's confused. If I leave him, The baker will kill him once he's served his purpose. I have to kidnap my own son to save him." I hung up. I hot-wired an old sedan 2 blocks over. I drove back to my house, where Leo was currently searching for more evidence. I crept up behind him in the garage. He was crying, holding a photo of me and him from a fishing trip. "I'm sorry, kid," I whispered. I put him in a sleeper hold. He struggled, but I knew the pressure points. He went limp. I dragged my 200-pound son into the passenger seat of the stolen car. I duct-taped his hands. I took his gun. We drove into the night, towards the cabin, towards the truth. I looked at Leo, sleeping in the seat next to me. He hated me. He wanted me dead, but I would burn the world down to keep him safe, even if I had to burn myself with it. I just kidnapped a police officer who happens to be my son. I am crossing a line I can never come back from. Do you think Leo will ever forgive me when he learns the truth? Or have I just guaranteed that I will die alone in a prison cell? Tell me what you would do. We are heading for the final showdown. The rain was hammering against the roof of the old hunting cabin, sounding like gravel being thrown at a coffin. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of mold and impending violence. I sat in a wooden chair, my son Leo tied to a support beam across from me, his eyes burning with a mixture of confusion and hatred. Next to me stood Harold, the judge, looking like a ghost in his muddy trench coat, clutching a thick, water-damaged file. We were 2 old men at the end of our rope, holding a police detective hostage, waiting for a woman and a monster to come through that door. When the headlights finally swept across the window, Harold checked his revolver, a gun he hadn't fired in 20 years, and looked at me. "Martin," he said, "tonight we either clear our names or we die trying." I looked at Leo, who was straining against his bonds, and said, "Just listen, son. If I die tonight, just promise me you'll read the file before you spit on my grave." This is the finale, the moment where the lies unravel and the bullets fly. Before we see who walks out of these woods alive, make sure you are subscribed. We need witnesses. And here is the final question. Can a lie told to protect a child ever be forgiven, or is the truth always worth the cost? Tell me in the comments. My name is Martin, and tonight I am not a chief. I am a father. The door to the cabin burst open. It wasn't kicked in. It was opened with a key. Harold's key. Clara walked in first. She was soaking wet, holding a Glock 19 like she knew how to use it. Behind her limped a man in a long, dark coat. He had silver hair and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite and left to weather in a storm. He leaned on a cane with a silver handle. It was him, the baker, or as he was calling himself now, Uncle Arthur. "Dad?" Clara said, seeing Harold with the gun. She hesitated. She saw Leo tied to the beam. "Martin? What the hell are you doing?" "Saving your life, Clara," Harold said, his voice steady. "Step away from him." The baker laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. "Always the dramatist, Harold, even without the robe." "Who is he?" Leo shouted, struggling. "Clara, who is this guy?" "This is Arthur," Clara said, keeping her gun trained on Harold. "He's the one who helped me find the truth. He's the one who saw you steal the bonds." "He's the one who hired your parents to steal them in the first place," I said, stepping forward. "His name is Julian Vane, the baker. He was the mastermind behind the Sterling heist. And he's the one who sent Vincent Nero and your mother into that warehouse to die." Clara looked at the baker. "What is he talking about? You said you were an accountant. You said you were a witness." "I am a witness, my dear," the baker said smoothly. "I witnessed these 2 corrupt officials burn down a warehouse to hide their theft. They killed your parents." "Show her the file, Harold," I said. Harold threw the file onto the floor between them. It slid open. Photos spilled out. They weren't photos of bonds. They were crime scene photos from inside the warehouse. They showed Vincent Nero, Leo's father, holding a gun to the head of a toddler. Leo. And they showed Clara's mother, holding a grenade, standing over a pile of bearer bonds. "Look at them," Harold shouted. "Clara, look! Your mother wasn't a victim. She was the demolition expert. She rigged the warehouse to blow. We didn't set the fire. She did. She was trying to kill us because we had them cornered." Clara glanced down. Her eyes widened. That's a grenade." "And that's me," Leo whispered, looking at the photo of the toddler. "He has a gun to my head." "We didn't kill them for money," I said, my voice breaking. "We killed them to save you. I shot Vincent because he was squeezing the trigger. Harold shot your mother because she pulled the pin. We grabbed you two and ran out seconds before the building collapsed." "And the bonds?" the baker asked, his voice losing its charm. "Where are the bonds, Harold?" "They burned," Harold said. $10 million. Vaporized. We didn't take a dime. We took the children. We forged the adoption papers. We sealed the records. We decided that you two deserved to grow up as the children of a judge and a chief, not the spawn of cop killers and terrorists." The room was silent, save for the rain. "Lies," the baker snarled. "They have the money. They buried it." "If we have the money," I asked, "why is Harold's house mortgaged? Why do I drive a 2004 Ford? Why did we work for 30 years? Clara lowered her gun slightly. Doubt was creeping in. She looked at the baker. "Arthur, you said you saw them take the bags. You said my mother was begging for her life." The baker's face twisted. The mask fell. He wasn't a kindly uncle anymore. He was a shark. "It doesn't matter what happened then," the baker said, pulling a silenced pistol from his coat. "What matters is what happens now." He grabbed Clara by the hair and jammed the gun against her temple. "No!" Harold screamed. "Drop the guns!" the baker yelled. "Or the daughter joins the mother." I dropped my gun. Harold dropped his. "Clara!" Leo shouted. "Clara, fight him!" "Shut up, cop!" the baker spat. "Here is how this ends. You two old fools are going to tell me where the rest of the bonds are. I know you didn't burn all of them. Nobody burns $10 million. "We did," Harold said. "We chose the kids over the cash, something you would never understand." "Then you die," the baker said. He cocked the hammer. I looked at Leo. He was working his hands behind his back. I had tied him with a specific knot, a slip knot. I had taught him that knot when he was 10. "Leo," I said softly. "Pitcher's mound." Leo's eyes locked onto mine. He understood. It was our code for a pickoff move. Fast. Unexpected. Leo slipped his hands free. He didn't lunge at the baker. He lunged at the floor. He grabbed Harold's revolver. The baker turned. Bang! Leo didn't hesitate. He shot the baker in the shoulder. The impact spun the old man around, releasing Clara. Clara didn't scream. She dropped to the floor, grabbed her Glock, and fired 3 times. The baker hit the wall and slid down, dead before he hit the floor. Silence returned to the cabin. Smoke hung in the air. Clara sat on the floor, shaking. Leo stood there, holding the smoking gun, looking from the body to me. I walked over to him. I waited for him to arrest me, to hit me. Instead, he dropped the gun and collapsed into my arms. He sobbed like the toddler I had saved 30 years ago. "I'm sorry, Dad," he wept. "I'm so sorry." Harold walked over to Clara. He knelt down. She wouldn't look at him. She was staring at the photo of her mother with the grenade. "She chose the money," Clara whispered. "She chose the money over me." "But I chose you," Harold said gently. "I always chose you." Clara turned and buried her face in his coat. "We didn't call the police immediately. We sat there for an hour. We told them everything. The trial, the adoption, the fear of this exact day. In the end, The truth didn't set us free. It bound us together with scars. We called the station. Leo made the report. He claimed the baker, identified as the fugitive Julian Vane, had kidnapped Clara and lured us there. It was self-defense. The planted evidence against me and Harold was attributed to Vane trying to frame us. Since Vane was dead and a known career criminal, the narrative stuck. The charges against me and Harold were dropped. The bonds Vane had planted in Harold's house were seized as evidence of Vane's old crimes. 6 months later. I sat on a park bench with Harold. We were feeding pigeons. 2 old men, survivors. "How is Clara?" I asked. "She's writing a book," Harold said, "about the Sterling heist, but she's writing the truth this time. She comes over for dinner on Sundays. It's quiet, but she's there." "And Leo?" "He's back on the force," I said. "He turned down a promotion to detective. Said he wants to stay in uniform for a while. Says he needs to learn how to see people again, not just suspects." "We were lucky, Martin," Harold said. "We weren't lucky," I said. "We were fathers." I looked across the park. I saw Leo walking his beat. He saw me. He didn't wave. He just tapped the brim of his cap. A small gesture. But it was enough. We kept a secret for 30 years to protect our children from the truth, but the truth almost destroyed us all. In the end, we learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who stands in front of the bullet for you. Thank you for listening to our story. And remember, the past is never dead. It's not even past. This is Martin, signing off. Check your attics. You never know what ghosts are living up there.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales like this, hit subscribe.